Do you have ID on you?
I prefer not to identify.
Okay, I'd like to see it. You're required by law to give me your ID.
Actually, unless I've been suspected of committing a crime, I'm not required to.
You're filming a government building.
From a public sidewalk.
Right, that's
which is
fine.
perfectly legal.
Right, I have the right to detain you, okay, and you're required to identify yourself.
Well,
you're not being charged with anything.
I understand that. I understand that, officer, but I do understand California law. Unless you have reasonable suspicion that I've actually committed a crime,
okay.
Filming a government building from a public sidewalk, which is protected by the First Amendment, is not a crime.
No, but I have the right to detain you to figure out what's going on, okay?
Okay.
You're addressed in all BDUs, you got a video camera, 2 video cameras, okay?
Okay.
And juvenile hall is concerned, okay? If no crime is committed, then no big deal, okay? But I do have the right to identify you.
A blogger filming from a public sidewalk in Santa Maria was stopped by police and pressured to provide identification. The officer argued that filming a government facility is suspicious activity and claimed the right to detain him for investigation, while the filmmaker stood firm on his First Amendment rights. Will the officer's lack of legal clarity or the citizen's persistence prevail in this intense standoff? Watch how the filmmaker professionally handles the situation on ID Refusal 101. We would like to thank the original creator for this footage and encourage everyone to follow their channel for more content. Welcome to ID Refusal 101. We're here to arm you with legal knowledge to protect yourself. Subscribe now to know your rights and how to assert them. And now, enjoy the video.
All right, Nasty Nathaniel out here in Santa Maria, California. And right now I'm going to be conducting a First Amendment audit of the Susan J. Gianfrido Juvenile Justice Center, which houses the Santa Maria Juvenile Hall and the Santa Barbara County Juvenile Courts. So right now we're going to see if the County of Santa Barbara respects and honors the First Amendment to the Constitution, which is the right to film and take photographs in public view.
Hello there. How you doing?
Hi.
Hey, I just called 911. I thought it was kind of unusual that you're taking photographs of now you're taking photographs of me, I take it. Okay. Why are you taking photographs of a facility that's a lockdown facility?
Well, I don't see how that's any of your concern, sir.
See, it's any of my business? Okay, well let 911 talk to you then.
Okay, well, I'm on a public sidewalk. They're more than happy. All right, well, we got this individual here. All right. Well, we got this gentleman who called 911 on me earlier. He's parked down the street. Wants to know why I'm taking pictures of the juvenile hall. Said he's gonna have 911 deal with me. So we'll see what happens when the cavalry gets here. Right there, we got a shot of Old Glory. And below Old Glory is the California State Bear flag. Always flying high and proud. This looks like some kind of a entrance for prisoner transport vehicles. We got the Santa Maria Police Department on the scene. Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Great, thank you.
So Juvenile Hall wanted to know why you're videotaping their building.
Just gathering content for a little story I'm working on.
Okay. Is it for like school or something?
I have a blog and such.
Okay. Do you have ID on you?
I prefer not to identify.
Okay, I'd like to see it. You're required by law to give me your ID.
Actually, unless I've been suspected of committing a crime, I'm not required to.
You're filming a government building.
From a public sidewalk.
Right, that's
which is
fine.
perfectly legal.
Right, I have the right to detain you, okay, and you're required to identify yourself.
Well,
You're not being charged with anything.
I understand that. I understand that, officer, but I do understand California law. Unless you have reasonable suspicion that I've actually committed a crime,
Okay.
filming a government building from a public sidewalk, which is protected by the First Amendment, is not a crime.
No, but I have the right to detain you to figure out what's going on, okay?
Okay.
You're addressed in all BDUs, you got a video camera, 2 video cameras, okay?
Okay.
And juvenile hall is concerned, okay? If no crime is committed, then no big deal, okay? But I do have the right to identify you. You are required to give me your ID.
No, I'm not. Unless you have reasonable suspicion that I've actually committed a crime, I'm not required to identify myself. No, I'm not.
Being detained.
Okay, officer, what am I being detained for?
For suspicion of why you're dressed and acting all weird in front of juvenile hall.
Well, suspicion is not a crime.
Right, it's not probable cause. It's reasonable suspicion to detain you to investigate what's going on.
Okay, and I just told you what's going on. Well, officer, at this point, I'd like to speak to a supervisor, so I would ask that you call a sergeant out here.
Absolutely. Item 53, is there a field sergeant able to respond?
How you doing, dude?
Hi, how you doing, sir?
Good. What's going on today?
Just gathering content for a little story.
What?
Just gathering content, like B-roll, for a little story I'm doing.
Ooh, what's the story on?
It's just for a blog I write.
What's the blog about?
I'd rather not say it this time, because it's not published yet, so, you know, just getting some B-roll.
Whatever.
Okay.
Okay, but you understand why we came out here?
I understand.
Okay. Do you think it's a little weird that you're out here filming Juvenile Hall?
Okay. Well, I've been on the public sidewalk the whole time.
No, that's
I
fine.
haven't gone
Not
on
saying-
any
not saying
restricted
anything
areas.
wrong with that,
Okay.
but we just want to make sure that you're not coming out here trying to snoop around and do something. Because people tend to do reconnaissance, you know?
Yeah.
You want to talk to the sergeant, I take it?
Yeah, because like the other officer, you know, she asked for my ID. I respectfully declined because, you know, I know what my rights are. Unless there's reasonable suspicion that a crime has actually been committed, I'm not required to identify myself. So the other officer here is suggesting that she has the right to ID me. I'm saying no. So at this point, I think it would be best to have a supervisor come out and we can clarify all this.
That's fine.
Okay.
Whatever. Make it easy that way.
As the backup officer intervenes in Santa Maria, the dialogue shifts toward a psychological trap, the reconnaissance theory. The police attempt to label the cameraman's Brommel filming for his blog as suspicious surveillance for malicious intent. However, this police tactic cannot substitute for reasonable suspicion under the Fourth Amendment. The filmmaker executes a professional ID refusal by stating he remains on a public sidewalk where the First Amendment protects the right to record. Demanding identification based solely on a feeling of weirdness without evidence of a crime is a clear sign of police misconduct. In these encounters, ID refusal is essential to safeguarding civil rights. The filmmaker is legally correct to demand a supervisor to address this flawed detention process. You must stay firm with ID refusal when officers fail to provide a legitimate legal basis. Consistently practicing ID refusal ensures that constitutional boundaries are respected by law enforcement.
So just to clarify, I am being legally detained. I'm not free to leave.
As far as I know, you haven't done anything criminal. We just asked who you were.
Okay.
That's all.
Well, the other officer here said that I was being detained. So,
I think it's suspicious that you're out here filming a juvenile hall.
okay.
Yeah, I was detaining you to find out who you are.
Oh, so I am being detained.
I am detaining you.
I'm not free to leave then. Okay. All right.
I'm not accusing you of any crime or anything. I'm just trying to figure out why you're out here.
Okay. And like I said, I understand that. You got a call for service. You have to come out and investigate. I explained to you what I was doing. But, you know, and you've even admitted that I'm not doing anything wrong. There's no crime being committed. Then I really don't understand why I'm being detained then.
Do you want to speak to our sergeant?
If I'm being detained, yes.
The confusion of the Santa Maria officers becomes evident as they provide conflicting definitions of detention. While the male officer attempts to downplay the situation by admitting no crime has occurred, the female officer flatly states she is detaining the filmmaker just to find out who he is. This is a significant legal failure. Under the Fourth Amendment, police cannot detain a citizen merely to satisfy curiosity. Such behavior borders on police misconduct as they conflate a consensual encounter with a formal detention. The filmmaker executes a brilliant ID refusal by forcing the officers to admit he is detained without any reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. Applying ID refusal in this context is the most powerful legal tool to counter overreach. If an officer admits no crime has been committed yet refuses to let you leave, it constitutes an unlawful seizure. Always remember your ID refusal rights and demand a supervisor, as this filmmaker did, to protect your interests against officers who misunderstand the law. Consistently practicing ID refusal is key to upholding the First Amendment on the streets.
Department. Today's date is 1/23 of 2017. The time is 16:13 hours. Are you getting that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I want it stamped too, okay?
Okay.
How can we help you?
Nothing. I just, your officers made contact with me. I explained to them I'm gathering content for a little story I'm doing.
Alrighty.
And one of your officers, she wanted to see my ID. I told her I'd prefer not to.
Actually, we do have the right to ask you for your ID because they call us here. It is a juvenile hall facility here, so we do have your authority. Okay, so if you're doing a story, yes, we do have that right, sir.
Okay, and I explained to your officer that unless I understand California law, I've been through this before.
Okay.
Unless you have reasonable suspicion that I've actually committed a crime.
Hear me out, okay?
Okay.
Listen to her.
So we have people that do reconnaissance on police, on our juvenile hall facilities, jail facilities, people that gather information, take video surveillance, try to identify us, identify our vehicles, and do all that kind of stuff for malicious purposes, okay? And I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing out here. You're saying that you're doing this for a blog or whatever. So we're detaining you to figure out whether or not you're doing this for malicious purposes or completely innocent purposes. And if it's for completely innocent purposes, that's totally fine. But we do have the right to identify you, okay? And if we ID you and everything's good to go, then you're fine.
And I have a right to decline because I know the law. I know my right. I'm not trying to be confrontational or anything. But unless you have reasonable suspicion that I've actually committed a crime, I'm not required
listen to the officer
to identify myself.
So the way a detention works, right? We don't have probable cause at this point. The reason we detain people is to investigate something to see whether or not a crime has been committed. So when we detain somebody, at that point, we do not know whether or not a crime has been committed or not yet. Okay? It's during the detention we do our investigation to identify that person and find out why they're there doing what they're doing. And if no crime has been committed, there's no probable cause, and that person is free to go. But during a detention, that's when we do our investigation. And at that point, the person is required to identify themselves by law. No crime has been committed that I can tell at this point. You're right. That's correct.
Okay.
But we still have the right to detain you and to identify you. Okay?
Okay, but what probable cause is there to suspect that I have committed a crime? I'm filming from a public sidewalk.
If there was probable cause, you would be in handcuffs already. Right. That's what she's trying to explain to you.
Okay.
But we do have, a detention just to investigate. And we didn't come out here on our own. They contacted us.
Yeah, you got a call for service. I understand that.
And if you know the law and everything, you know that part too. Okay? And bottom line is, the officer's right, and we do have a job to do, obviously. Taxpayers pay us to do a job, and this is part of the job.
Okay.
Okay? So all she's asking for identification of who we're talking to. She's not asking for too much.
Okay.
Okay?
And I'm respectfully declining.
Okay. Well, we do need an ID, sir.
Okay, well, I'm not going to provide identification. Like I said, I've been through this before. You know, I've been through similar situations.
This way to start our camera too, so that way, everything's recorded. Okay. So.
The arrival of Sergeant Lara from the Santa Maria Police Department does not change the nature of the encounter, but instead exposes a systematic overreach. Sergeant Lara presents a flawed legal argument, claiming that police have the authority to compel identification simply because they are investigating a call or because the location is a juvenile facility. This is a dangerous misinterpretation of the law designed to undermine a citizen's right to ID refusal. Under Terry v. Ohio and the Fourth Amendment, investigative detention requires specific, articulable facts suggesting a crime is afoot, not vague theories about reconnaissance. The filmmaker shows exceptional courage by maintaining his ID refusal, flatly rejecting unlawful demands even from a superior officer. Sergeant Lara's behavior, including the threat of handcuffs, is a classic form of police misconduct used to coerce compliance. You have the right to ID refusal when there is no reasonable suspicion of a specific crime. Stay firm with your ID refusal to protect your First Amendment right to record in public. Consistently upholding ID refusal is the only way to hold law enforcement accountable to the Constitution.
And what was the call? Doing a story for or anything? We'll show you the blog, business card, or anything.
Do you have a business card or anything for your blog?
No, I don't.
All right, this is what's going to happen.
Okay, sir.
Okay? We're going to stand around so you take care of your business. Okay? And then whatever you need for your blog, do the filming here from here. And obviously that's private property over there.
Okay.
And then just leave when you're ready. Okay? But we're going to stand around here to make sure that the facility is safe.
Okay, that's
because
perfectly
there are
fine.
kids in here, and that's our main concern here, kids. Okay, so we don't know what you're doing here, and we don't feel comfortable just leaving you here. So we are going to stick around, and then when you're ready to when you're done, then you can leave.
Actually, I'm already ready.
Well, then we can get
Yeah.
going then. Okay.
Okay.
And everything will be documented. We're writing a report and everything, all the
Okay.
pictures and everything. So we have our own little information too. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So whenever you're ready, you can get out of here or
Okay.
whatever you're going to do.
So I'm no longer being detained. I'm free to go.
You're free to go.
Okay.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a bad angle.
Oh yeah, the glare.
Yeah, don't want to glare.
Okay.
And again, we're doing all this for the safety of the children in there.
Okay.
All righty. All righty. Okay. So,
Okay.
to you now.
All right. Thank you.
Alrighty.
Have a good day.
one.
And once Sergeant Lara realizes there is no legal basis for an arrest, the Santa Maria police are forced to terminate the detention. However, they continue to exert psychological pressure through overt surveillance. The filmmaker achieves a definitive victory in this encounter thanks to his steadfast ID refusal tactics. Although the officers used the pretext of child safety to justify their interference, recording from a public sidewalk remains fully protected under the First Amendment. The sight of 4 officers standing around merely to take photos of a citizen is a prime example of wasting public resources and intimidatory police misconduct. The filmmaker proves that when you understand the Fourth Amendment and execute ID refusal correctly, law enforcement cannot force you to surrender your privacy. The lesson here is to remain professional, know the law, and never compromise on unlawful identification demands. ID refusal serves as the final line of defense for personal liberty against police overreach. Consistently practicing ID refusal ensures that your constitutional rights are not just words on paper, but a reality on the streets. Summarizing the encounter in Santa Maria, we witness a clear demonstration of the power of legal knowledge. I give the filmmaker an A grade for his unwavering stance and deep understanding of the First Amendment and ID refusal rights. In contrast, Sergeant Lara and the supporting officers receive a D grade for police misconduct, intentionally blurring the lines between a consensual encounter and an illegal seizure under the Fourth Amendment. The core laws at play include Terry v. Ohio, which mandates reasonable suspicion before any detention, and the right to record in public spaces. When pressured for identification, always ask, am I being detained and for what specific crime? If no reasonable suspicion exists, execute your ID refusal professionally. Do not let intimidation force you to surrender your civil liberties. Subscribe to ID Refusal 101 to master your rights, and please follow the original channel to support those defending the Constitution on the front lines. Consistent ID refusal is how we maintain accountability in law enforcement. Knowing your rights isn't being difficult, it's being prepared. If this video helped you understand your legal rights, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Drop a comment below, tell us your story, ask a question, or suggest the next encounter we should break down. This is ID Refusal 101, where we teach the basics of your right. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.